was wondering why my video on the Regretting You book was getting a jolt in views, and then I realized that they had finally released a trailer.
I'm very sorry. Your husband and sister were in a car accident. We did everything we could.
Considering that I was in a tremendous rush when I made that video, I thought that it would make sense to revisit a few details of the source material by going through this new trailer and identifying a few things that have been shown. Moreover, I can share some preliminary thoughts on the film adaptation based on what's been previewed. Obviously, I will issue a full spoiler alert for the book and probably for the film as well. Now, normally I don't go into people's personal lives. As far as I'm concerned, that's really none of my business, unless crimes are being committed.
Obviously, we completely encourage people to go out and punch their local cops.
Oh, beat the cops asunder.
But I did not know when I made my previous video that the actors who are portraying Miller and Clara are dating in real life. Being that that's the case, I'm not really surprised that the trailer opted to put a lopsided amount of attention onto their romantic coupling, but not as much about Morgan and Jonah's pairing. From a marketing perspective, I understand that choice, but from a viewer's perspective who has read the book and is interested in adaptation, I am now left wanting when it comes to just trying to gauge how effective Allison and Dave are in playing a romantic couple. The glimpses we get of romantic tension between Morgan and Jonah are so few and far between, and I just would like to get more of a temperature check. Maybe if they'll release a second trailer before the film releases into cinemas, they can tease that coupling just a bit more than they did in this first trailer. Because if I have it my way, I want to see 2 romances for the price of 1.
I want 2 for the price of 1.
But now let's go through this trailer. I will have to keep any clips I show extremely short because this is a Paramount Pictures film, and anything Paramount Pictures, I have repeatedly had problems with them on my channel. Problems as in certain studios like to hire a shady company to file false copyright claims on videos that fall under fair use. So, let's begin. This is the opening meet cute that's not really a meet cute between Clara and Miller because they already know of each other and already have feelings for one another, but this is the first time we experience them interacting in the book. You do have that sense that Clara already had a crush on Miller, but he doesn't fully reveal until much further into the story that he more or less fell in insta-love or insta-crush with her about 2 years prior to this scene when he saw her do a 2-minute monologue in a school play. In this opening scene of their romance, he is shown trying to move a sign, and he explains to Clara that he's been gradually moving this sign bit by bit because he wants to be able to order pizza for delivery from his favorite pizza place, but that place refuses to deliver outside of the city limits. That's as frivolous and flimsy of an excuse for a meet cute as any other meet cute, but the vibes are vibing, which is ultimately what actually matters. So, already, I approve.
What are you doing?
Come here a sec.
I'm already running late.
Please?
Well, this was some meet cute.
In the book, he also stops to film Clara when she first drives by him and he's talking to her, but he's really just talking to himself and saying that he really wants her to turn the car around and that he's had a thing for her for a while, and if she turns the car around and comes back to him, that he will take that as a sign to break up with his girlfriend, whom I think he only started dating to try to take his mind off of Clara, but that's probably from a conversation from somewhere else in the book. Anyway, he wants to finally ask Clara out and maybe even ask her to prom this year. You don't see that footage until the end of the book when he shows Clara a compilation of footage he has put together for a cheesy promposal. I don't see a camera here unless he would have just recorded it on his phone, which could work, to be fair. Danny Boyle used loads of mobile phones when he was making 28 Years Later, so as far as I'm concerned, that's more than sufficient enough for a teenager doing a promposal. I doubt he would be keeping a DSLR on him while he's doing his city limit sign adjustments. We see Clara talking to her Aunt Jenny on her mobile phone after she spends time with Miller, but not only that, Morgan can hear the entire conversation. This is an ongoing dynamic. Clara doesn't want to talk to her mother about a great many things. Now, you could chalk that up to your usual teenage angst, but it's an important foundation for the larger rift that's going to form between them after Clara's father and aunt die, and Morgan keeps this a secret from her until closer to the end of the story. At this early stage, Clara will call or text Jenny, and then Jenny will tell Morgan, after which Morgan is the one who dishes out various bits of advice and wisdom, and Clara responds well to receiving that, but it's not entirely fair that Jenny is getting credit for seeming like the cool, smart aunt with great advice when she's nothing of the sort.
Ugh.
Clara wants to be an actress and Miller wants to be a filmmaker, so of course his room is covered with film posters, and naturally, I had to pause and inspect the curation, and overall, I'm not all that impressed.
Do you like cheese?
That doesn't mean that I don't like these films, but I would have been more keen if I'd found something a bit more unexpected in his collection.
I'm bored.
Ferris Bueller's Day Off, we're referencing John Hughes in a teenage love story. Sure, okay. I'm not Gen X, and I'm fairly certain many a Gen X would be terribly cross with me if I went on a full explanation of how much I do not care for John Hughes, but
I love my haters. They make me famous.
next, when I saw this picture of Harrison Ford, I originally wondered if this was for The Fugitive, just because he looks like that from that era, but when I looked up the Fugitive movie posters, nothing was coming up to match this, so I tried pulling up a film that was released around the same time as that, and sure enough, I found a match. It's a propaganda movie called Patriot Games.
I'm glad we're not watching a cop show. Gotta stop mythologizing the police, for Christ's sake. Come on.
I've never seen that film, and I'm deeply uninterested in prioritizing watching propaganda right now. So I skimmed the plot summary, and guess who the villain of the week is in Patriot Games? The Irish.
Loved every moment. The kind of movie that makes you want to punch a cop. Whoa.
I put Kneecap in my top 10 video of 2024, so...
Viva Palestine, up the IRA. All right.
Clearly you came to the wrong channel if you would like for me to speak ill of the Chucky or Law folks.
So I don't know what else to say. Should I sing a rebel song?
And I mean really Chinatown. You're giving Roman Polanski shout-outs in 2025. This is a room of teenagers, and you're putting up a Roman Polanski movie on the wall. I mean, that's certainly a choice you made.
You having an unnatural allegiance to losers is not like you.
We have The Godfather, we have yet another Harrison Ford movie, Witness over here, we have Election in this corner, The Truman Show, and School of Rock.
That's the thing. He's white.
I don't know, I just feel like I would rather you pick something more specifically identifiable to this character that could have made me go, oh, that's not what I would have expected to see among your poster collection. Let me analyze why I think you were drawn to that. And just so we're very clear here, me nitpicking the movie posters on the wall is not in any way going to be a major determining factor when I actually review the film in its totality. I'm well aware of the fact that stopping to examine the poster selection is an extremely pedantic thing to do, but I'm interested in those details, so I'm just doing it for the sake of this video. Moving over to this wall, the poster behind his head on the right side, initially I had wondered if this might be John Carpenter's The Thing because of the coloring and the stance, maybe that's the leg, but the font color doesn't seem to match. I'll likely need to get a better look at this set once I can see the film in full. And over here we have The Untouchables. I don't think I've seen this film, but the timing of spotting this poster was interesting just because I was recently watching Sisters, which is another Brian De Palma film. I'm just saying I would have been far more excited by Miller's taste in films if he had had Sisters on the wall.
I have a thing about feminine rage.
I don't care if Margot Kidder's French-Canadian accent is questionable in that movie, because the movie overall was fierce.
Don't tell my mom about this.
You know how she gets.
Yeah, no, of course I won't.
Sometimes it scares me how good of a liar you are.
Did you hear that? That, ladies and gentlethems, was foreshadowing, because Jenny over here is a dirty, rotten liar, as is Chris.
My mom got pregnant with me when she was 18. She and my dad were high school sweethearts.
I do appreciate them specifying that Morgan was still in her late teens when she got pregnant with Clara, because that is a massive part of her story. It's also good for viewers who haven't read the book to know this detail, simply because Hollywood is often misogynistic in its casting, so you will get actors who are weirdly close in age playing parent and child to such an extent that it wouldn't make biological sense. But with them, Morgan's supposed to be in her mid-30s, and she feels like she hasn't really been able to develop more of herself outside of being a wife and mother. She had initially enrolled in university to do her undergraduate, but then she didn't finish, so her deciding whether or not she'd like to go back to school and what sort of career goals she would like to pursue, any dreams that she has now that her life has been turned upside down, that adds more dimension to her story.
My Aunt Jenny also ended up with her high school boyfriend, Jonah.
This peck made me want to crawl out of my body and wake up in an avatar and run away from anywhere that would require me to see that again, because it's so devoid of passion.
Take it away before I gag.
Jenny tricked Jonah into thinking this is his baby when biologically speaking, it's not. It's Chris's baby.
Can you shed some light on the current situation?
Jenny went to Jonah's father's funeral and seduced him into having a one-night stand and claimed she was pregnant with his baby. You cannot and will not convince me of anything other than my steadfast belief that she already knew she was pregnant and she went to that funeral to find a vulnerable, grieving ex-boyfriend to be her baby daddy so she could carry on with her affair and keep all of that hidden.
The deception! The betrayal.
And just for the sake of clarity, there's a bit more ambiguity in the book about that information because the book is limited by the perspective of whichever character that chapter is being presented through. But in a film, you can just show us what is or isn't the case, regardless of whether or not the characters themselves are aware of those details. Though to be honest, I don't actually need the confirmation either way because these two are my nemeses, and that's that.
Back the fuck up! Okay. Get away from me, all of you!
Here we have Morgan and Jonah and the baby at the hospital finding out that Chris and Jenny are dead. And really, the only thing I wanted to point out about this scene is that this actor playing the doctor, I recognized him immediately because he is constantly being booked in things, but usually in smaller roles like this one you see here. And he also has a YouTube channel where he gives advice and insight to what it's like to be a working actor, insight for those aspiring to work in that profession. I will go ahead and link his channel in the description box. If you would like to be in a video in the future, let me know. I mean, tell me about filming this scene because you got to deliver the juicy, dramatic reveal that launches a whole lot of mess that unfolds shortly thereafter. You're basically the one to instigate the entire movie. Dr. What's-His-Name shows up and says, "So sorry to inform you, besties, that thine cheating spouses have been vehicularly slain." And that's when I'm going to start cackling in the audience because they had it coming. They only have themselves to blame. I know some people are put off of seeing this film because of the author of the book, but I'm watching this film to watch these two go in the ground. It's a comedy. Speaking of that though, the funeral, or one of them anyway, Morgan, having a completely reasonable response of being very upset at finding out that the two adults she considered closest to her were actually evil, evil people, refuses to let them have a shared funeral. They need to have separate funerals.
Should I block it? Yeah. I'ma block it.
Clara is upset about this, but remember, Morgan hasn't told her about the affair, so she feels far more alone during this point in her journey of grief. Miller checks on Clara to see how she's doing, and she says she's not doing very well, so they leave together, and Clara asks him to get some La Ganja Estranja, which she's never had before, but she's very upset and she would like to act out and rebel a bit. So Miller asks a coworker of his for a joint because Miller doesn't partake on a regular basis, so he didn't already have some.
Are you on drugs?
No, but if I were, that'd be a deal breaker.
Morgan tracks them down using the tracking apps on their phone. Oh, did I mention the tracking app? Chris, Morgan's dead cheating husband, paid for a tracking app, and Morgan always thought that this was a safety thing. No, it was to help him have an affair and not get caught by his wife. This picture is talked about in the book. It's from when Morgan is looking through some old pictures and she's reminiscing. She is recalling having this moment with Jonah when they were high schoolers in the pool. And then she looks at the picture and realizes that He was just openly yearning for her. Imagine being that oblivious. Some of you don't even need to imagine. That's just your life.
Your heartbeat is fast.
Sorry.
Try to focus.
It's my favorite movie of all time.
Me too.
My only feedback about this for the time being is that I find it odd to try to have all of those actors play their characters in high school. I would sooner believe Scott Eastwood to be 57 years old than I would believe him as an 18-year-old. Sonny Lattieri himself is a more believable middle-aged high schooler than Scott Eastwood could ever be.
I was just going for a walk.
You were just dawdling, weren't you?
Yes, ma'am.
We see some glimpses of Miller and Clara at the cinema, and this is where Miller works. And clearly it's an AMC because you've got Nicole Kidman's lines on the wall. We come to this place for magic. Jonah thinks Morgan should be honest with Clara, but she doesn't think it's a good idea because even though her husband was trash, Morgan still regards him as someone that was a good father to Clara, and Morgan doesn't want to ruin Clara's opinion of her father. She does not need to be that selfless, but okay.
You having an unnatural allegiance to losers is not like you.
The painting! Oh, how I hate this painting, but I do love watching them mess up the painting. So here's the story of the painting. Jenny had been adamant to Morgan that she wanted to get this painting for Chris's birthday. Morgan had told Jenny that she thought Chris wouldn't like it, and Jenny responded to Morgan, "You don't know him like I do." You know what, Morgan? You need to resurrect your sister and you need to fight her. Sorry, because this will not stand.
Demon! I will kill you as many times as I have to.
When Morgan tells Jonah about this painting, Jonah recalls to Morgan how the night before those two cheating cheaters died, Chris had asked Jenny if she was excited about the next day, and Jenny responded, "You have no idea." Morgan and Jonah had assumed that they were talking about Jenny going back to work, but they were actually talking about the two of them staying together at the Langford Hotel. They were gloating about the affair right in front of them.
But there is no way that I am fighting.
Thus, Jonah and Morgan decided to start throwing things at the painting. They slip on the mess, they almost kiss, but then Clara's car pulls into the driveway, which they can hear, so they don't have their first kiss yet. Morgan catches Miller and Clara in bed together because Clara and Morgan had gotten into a fight the night before this, because that was when Clara walked in on Morgan and Jonah kissing for the first time, and she jumped to the conclusion that they were having an affair while the actual cheaters were still alive. Clara decides to lash out at her mother by inviting Miller over, and she propositions him for them to have their first time. But then Clara gets upset midway through what they're doing, and she admits she doesn't actually want to be doing that right now, but she had gotten into this fight with her mother, and then Miller gets upset because he really likes her and would have been more than happy to just come over and emotionally support her without any salacious ongoings. Oh, and this incident of Morgan walking in on them, it happens on Clara's 17th birthday, which Clara reminds Morgan of because during their fight, Morgan refers to Clara as being 16, but it's not, girl. It's her birthday, and you forgot. And this fight you're seeing between Miller and Clara, that's on this same day, but later, because Clara says she wants to have a birthday dinner. Clara invites Miller over for that birthday dinner, but then it's really tense and awkward. Morgan tries to send Miller home, and Clara is insisting that he stay, but Miller just chooses to leave, and he tells Clara that he doesn't want to be used as a weapon in a fight between her and her mother. And he also tells Clara that during that birthday dinner, Clara was the one instigating the fight.
Don't scream at me.
This scene where Morgan is upset and attacking this car, that's when she and Jonah go to the Langford Hotel because the cheaters died in Jenny's car. Jonah had suggested to Morgan that she use OnStar to trace the location of Chris's car. Once they called the Langford Hotel, they're told that they can come on over and pick up the car, the keys, and the other stuff that was left in their hotel room. I'm going to nitpick a detail, but in the book, Morgan gets really upset when she and Jonah get to the hotel and they see the car and they get the overnight duffel bag belonging to Jenny that had been left there. And Morgan demands to leave without the car. She says she doesn't want it and the bank can just come and repossess it. I understand that she's upset, but also all I could think while reading that was, Morgan, just take the car back and sell it because you're in a financial predicament. You don't even know what sort of job you want to pursue now that you're a single mother. Sell all of his stuff, including the car. You should be compensated. This conversation between Clara and Morgan feels like it's at the end of the story because more or less their entire dramatic conflict is stemming from a lack of communication. The vibe of this preview, the title drop, it feels like something very close to the end of the book. And my final point, just to reiterate, if we're going to get a second trailer for this film, I really hope that they will use more of that trailer's runtime to preview the Morgan-Jonah romance, because this hand grab and lingering in each other's space, that's more or less the only noteworthy preview of their love story that we have so far. You could count the picture, but it's just not the same as two characters actually being in motion in each other's space. Jonah's story in this book is probably at least 75% intense romantic yearning for Morgan. That's so much of his storyline that I'm honestly surprised at how little it seemed to be shown in this first preview. As it stands, Dave Franco is still the biggest question mark I have about this film. Just let me see 3 seconds of solid yearning in a second trailer, and that will be that. I will have no further questions until I see the film in full. But if you have any thoughts or questions about this first trailer, feel free to share them in the comments, regardless of whether or not you've read the book, because I'm curious to see what the response was. I've got a new source material video that should be going up about a week from when this video gets published. It's already been filmed, but I simply haven't had time to edit that yet.